Tick, tick, that gentle sound filled the small town of Meadowville every morning. The sound came from an old shop at the corner of Maple Street, a magical place called Timely Wonders. Inside, the walls were covered in clocks. Big clocks, tiny clocks, loud clocks, silent clocks. Each one told a story. Some ticked proudly, while others waited quietly for their next chance to shine. The shop belonged to Mr. Ilyas, an old clockmaker with silver hair, soft eyes, and hands that still moved gracefully despite the wrinkles of time. But Mr. Ilyas wasn't alone in his shop anymore. He had recently taken an apprentice, a curious one-year-old boy named Arham. Arham was full of questions, energy, and dreams. From the moment he stepped into the shop, his eyes sparkled with wonder. "Mr. Ilyas," he'd ask, "how can all these clocks tell the same time when they look so different?" The old man would smile. "Because, Arham, every clock has its own rhythm just like people. What matters isn't how they look, but how they keep going." At first, Arham was fascinated by the gears, springs, and ticking sounds. He wanted to build a clock of his own right away. But after a few tries, things didn't go as planned. The gears wouldn't fit, the hands moved too slowly, and sometimes the clock stopped altogether. Frustrated, Arham groaned, "Why can't I get it right? I follow all your steps." Mr. Ilyas chuckled kindly. "Time doesn't hurry, my boy. Why should you? Patience builds mastery." Arham frowned. "But I am trying, sir." The old man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Trying is good, but true learning comes when you listen not just with your ears, but with your heart." Arham didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. Days turned into weeks. Arham practiced from morning till night. He'd twist screws, adjust gears, and polish metal until his hands were sore. Yet, something always went wrong. One rainy afternoon, after his fifth broken clock, Arham threw his screwdriver down. "I'll never be good at this. Maybe I'm just not meant to fix clocks." Mr. Ilyas looked up from his bench, his eyes soft. He walked to a shelf, picked up an old golden pocket watch, and handed it to Arham. "This was my first clock," he said. "It never worked right. I almost gave up too. But then I realized a broken clock isn't a failure, it's a teacher." He smiled. "You see, Arham, when a clock stops, we don't throw it away. We open it, understand it, and fix it. Why not treat yourself the same way?" Arham stared at the old watch in silence. The clock hands were frozen, but somehow it felt alive. That night, Arham couldn't sleep. The rain tapped against the window like ticking seconds. He opened the old watch, looking at its gears. For the first time, he didn't rush. He studied each piece, noticing how one small tooth connected to another. He realized that fixing clocks wasn't about speed, it was about patience. And so, Arham began again. Every morning before sunrise, he'd sit at the workbench and whisper to himself, one step at a time. When he made mistakes, he didn't quit. He took a deep breath and tried again. When frustration came, he reminded himself, even time doesn't run, it flows. He started keeping a small notebook titled, "What I Learned Today." In it, he wrote things like, "Every mistake teaches me something. If I stay calm, I see the problem clearly. Progress is slow, but it's still progress." And slowly, tick by tick, Arham began to improve. Months passed, and one morning, Mr. Ilyas smiled at him and said, "Arham, I think you're ready for something special. In 3 weeks, we're having the town's annual clock exhibition. Why don't you build your own clock for it?" Arham's eyes widened. "Me? But what if it doesn't work?" Mr. Ilyas chuckled. "Then you'll learn something new. That's the point, isn't it?" So Arham began working day and night. He decided to build a clock that told more than time, it told a story. He designed a round golden frame with small carvings of stars and moons. The hands were shaped like feathers, and on the base, he engraved the words, "Patience builds mastery." He wanted it to remind everyone, especially himself, that time rewards those who keep going. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. The town hall buzzed with excitement. People from all over came to see the clocks, big, small, musical, glowing. Arham stood nervously beside his creation. His palms were sweaty. "What if it stops working?" he whispered to himself. Mr. Ilyas stood beside him. "Breathe, Arham. Remember, you didn't build perfection. You built progress. The judges approached. One of them leaned in and asked, "Tell us, young man, what's special about your clock?" Arham took a deep breath. "This clock isn't just about time. It's about patience. Every part of it took effort. Every mistake taught me something. It reminds us that even when things stop, we can always fix them." The judge smiled. The crowd clapped. Arham turned the key and held his breath. Tick, tick, tick. It worked. The steady sound filled the room, echoing softly like a heartbeat. Mr. Ilyas's eyes glistened. "You did it, my boy!" Arham looked up with a proud smile. "No, sir. We did it. You taught me time doesn't just move forward, it helps us grow." That evening, when the exhibition ended, the two walked back to the shop under the orange sunset. "Mr. Ilyas?" Arham asked quietly. "Do you think I'll ever be as good as you?" The old man smiled warmly. "You already are, Arham, because you've learned something most people never do, that patience isn't waiting, it's growing." As they entered the shop, the clocks began to tick together, 1,000 tiny hearts beating in perfect harmony. And in that sound, Arham realized something beautiful. He hadn't just learned to fix clocks. He'd learned to trust time and himself. In life, things don't always work the first time. You'll make mistakes, get frustrated, and feel stuck. But just like a clock, you can always start again. Patience, effort, and self-belief are what keep your dreams ticking 1 second, 1 try, 1 heartbeat at a time.